Hello again, I am Blunty. So I was sitting here this morning wondering what I was going to make a video about today because I had no plan for today's video. I was just going to find something to make a video about, put a video up, and then see how you guys reacted to it and whether or not you were kind enough to do the thing where you give me a thumb, subscribe, and bell, and comment, and all that sort of stuff. And then, like a gift from the heavens, here comes CD Projekt Red with some excuses. Some of them which are fairly weak excuses, trying to justify exactly what went wrong with CyberPunk 2077's launch and what they're going to do to fix it. Well, a plan, a chart with some bullet points on it about what they're thinking about doing about fixing it, and they're promising they'll fix it. So I've decided to do this video in the reacts to format, in that you just watch me watch the video, and every now and again we're going to stop and we're going to talk about the things that were just said. I don't do this type of video very often because, frankly, more often than not, it's fairly low effort, low quality content of people just going, that thing. But I'm going to try and actually add some value and insight here. And actually, I am going to link it, as you know, I'm going to put this in the headline actually. I'm going to link it to the strange situation going on with Minecraft right now, and the way ray tracing is implemented, and whether or not it's coming to the consoles like they promised it, and what's taking so long. We'll get there. Let's start.
Hey everyone, my name is Marcin Iwiński and I'm the co-founder of CDPR. When I started CDPR 25 years ago, one of its founding principles was honest and direct communication with games. When CDPR Red, the game development part of CDPR, was born, it added something important to that principle, the ambition to make the best games in the world. It became our mission and something that guided us up until now.
Unlike every other game studio in the world, whose mission is not to make very good games, they just want to make adequate games. Or actually, in the case of EA, they really do just want to make adequate games and then fill them with as much microtransactions as possible.
Based on that legacy of genuine and honest communication, you've trusted us.
Genuine and honest communication from CD Projekt Red. I'm not going to go through the entire list here because there are other people who've made entire videos about every single lie that CD Projekt Red have told throughout the development and lead up to release of this particular game. I've made one or two videos about of it myself, about a couple of particular lies they told, knowing that they were lies when they told them. So that's bullshit right there.
And pre-ordered our game. And despite good reviews on PC, the console version of CyberPunk 2077 did not meet the quality standard we wanted it to meet.
No shit. Whose fault was that?
I and the entire leadership team are deeply sorry for this, and this video is me publicly owning up to that. Please don't fault any of our teams for what happened. They all are incredibly talented and hardworking.
I'm sorry, don't fault the team that made the game for the quality of the game that they made.
Myself and the board are the final decision makers, and it was our call to release the game. Although, believe me, we never ever intended for anything like this to happen.
Horseshit. Horse shit. They knew they were releasing a broken game. You know how we know that they knew? Because when it came up to the review period, not only was the review period barely long enough to play through the game properly on PC, and those are the only review codes they handed out in time to get a review done, they deliberately hid, suppressed, and withheld access to a review of the console version, any console version, from press, from influencers, from everybody who could have warned people, don't spend your money on this, yet it's still wildly broken. The only version they put out was the only version they knew that was halfway playable, and that was the PC version. So when they say they never intended this to happen, that's another lie.
I assure you that we'll do our best to regain your trust. Now,
well, what other option do you have at this point? Shut down the studio because no one trusts you? Of course you're going to pretend you want our trust back. It's too late. Trust is very, very difficult to earn, very, very difficult to get back once you break it, which is why I tell so many companies to jump off a cliff when they come to me wanting me to advertise their crappy little dodgy products, even though I could really use the money. By the way, if you want to help out with that, I do have a Patreon.
Now I'd like to tell you how the situation looked like from the inside. CyberPunk 2077 is huge in scope, and I'm not only talking about quests or things you see at first glance. I'm talking about a multitude of custom objects, interacting systems, and mechanics.
To that end, they did do a spectacularly good job at building that world. It's a wonderful place to be in if you ignore the impossibly dumb AI of the NPCs. The city itself, the details, it's beautiful. It's wonderful, wonderful work.
In the game, everything is not stretched out over flat terrain where we can make things less taxing hardware-wise, but condensed in one big city and in a relatively loading-free environment. On its own, this is a challenge, but we made it even more difficult for ourselves by wanting to make the game look epic on PCs and then adjusting it to consoles.
That I will give them tremendous props for, because one of the things you'll find PC Master Race people whine about is consoles holding back game development. Because a lot of companies out there, because of the install base that consoles have and the ease of which consoles present gamers to end users, even those that are not technically minded, as you kind of have to be for PC gaming to a certain extent at least, a lot of games are built for console first, then ported to PC, and therefore PC gaming feels like it's being held back a lot of the time. These guys did it the other way around. They targeted high-end PC hardware first, and that's why the game, well, number one, works on PC properly, but number two, looks so spectacular with all the ray tracing and the detail and the high resolution and all that kind of stuff. You know, I'll give them complete props for targeting PC first. I truly believe that should be the way all games are made, and just scaled back for consoles, because that way everybody wins. Console players still get the game, still going to look console-y, but PC players don't feel like they're being held back or prevented from having the best possible version of the game when they've invested so many thousands of dollars quite often in top-of-the-line hardware. They want to be rewarded for that dedication to their gaming passion. And to that end, CD Projekt took the right step when that happened.
Especially old gens. That was our core assumption. And things did not look super difficult at first. We knew the hardware gap, yes, but ultimately, I think that time has proven that we've underestimated the task. To give a concrete example, and the main culprit, we had to constantly improve our in-game streaming system for all gen consoles. Streaming is responsible for feeding the engine with what you see on screen, as well as the game mechanics.
So what he's talking about there, for those who didn't quite understand, is streaming in this context. It's not talking about live streaming video. It's talking about streaming data from the storage. In the case of old gen hardware, it would be a mechanical hard drive, notoriously slow at the best of times. Streaming that data into the game engine, into the CPU, into the graphics processing pipeline. And if you can't get that data there quickly enough, it slows down everything else. And when you're talking about a massive open world game filled with as many details as this, that streaming is very, very important. That's why in the new generation of consoles, both have implemented technology to enhance the streaming. They've got very, very fast SSDs that built architecturally with a pipeline direct from the storage right into the CPU, so there's no little middleman to crawl through before you get there and everything like there was on previous generations of hardware. That kind of streaming is extremely important, particularly in this day and age of these large, very complex, very detailed open world games with high resolution graphics and lots of AI and lots of characters doing different things all at the same time. That streaming is super important. So getting it to work on the older generation of consoles was always going to be one of the biggest challenges of making it work on those crusty old consoles.
And since the city is so packed and the disk bandwidth of all gens is what it is, it constantly challenged us. Every change and improvement needed to be tested, and as it turned out, our testing did not show a big part of the issues you experience while playing the game.
That I don't understand. How can they be testing it and not see the issues everybody saw pretty much from day one, hour one? There's nobody out there going, oh yeah, it works fine on my Xbox One. Yeah, it works. I don't mind it. It works absolutely fine. Everyone saw the exact same issues with frame. As soon as you get into a car, the frame rate tanks. There's no problem solving issue. You have to go, oh, you have to do this, then you have to do this, and you have to be in this area at this time of day, and then you see the frame rate drop. No. It was endemic across the entire game from the very first part of when it releases you into the open world. The first part of the game sort of was very canned and happened largely indoors and in little corridors and stuff, so that wasn't too bad. But the instant you got into the open world, it was obvious that there were issues there. So them telling you that they didn't see these issues before it was too late is another lie. There is no way they didn't see this in testing.
As we got closer to the final release, we saw significant improvements each and every day, and we really believed we would deliver in the final Day Zero update. Now let's talk about the review process. We started sending our PC review keys in the first days of December. On launch day, December 10th, we hit the ground running with a really good start on PC. While not perfect, it's a version of CyberPunk we are very proud of.
I don't know whether very proud is the right word. There are tons of problems on PC still. Sure, it runs fine as long as you've got the hardware for it. It looks fantastic as long as you've got the hardware for it. And it's very, very fun to play. I love the characters and the stories and the side, you know. The implementation largely is something to be proud of, but there's a lot of stuff that just ruin immersion, stuff that they promised and didn't deliver. Things like the AI of the NPCs. They promised that all these NPCs would be on their own little schedules and be very intelligent, do their own things and have little patterns to themselves, and none of that happened. All you see is NPCs with extreme, like the most basic level of AI I have seen in a game in years and years. They just stand there doing one thing. Maybe they're leaning over a garbage can, or maybe they're walking back and forth a little bit, and every now and then there's a guy over there who does nothing but smokes a cigarette. None of them are on their own schedules. None of them do anything except the one thing that they're assigned when they are spawned in. And if you turn your back and walk down the street and come back, it spawns in a completely different character doing that exact same thing. The immersion is ruined by this laziness, this ineffectualness, this lie that they told us that they were going to give us with this immersive world, and then ruined it. So, bullshit again.
At the same time, we're fighting for quality on all-gen consoles till the very last moment. And every extra day of us working on the Day Zero update brought visible improvement. This is why we started sending console review keys on the 8th of December.
2 days before launch is when they sent review keys out for this 30 to 80 hour long game. Okay? If you're playing it properly, minimum time you get through the game, you do your side missions, you do your main story. I mean, sure, you can rush through it if you like, but that's not what you need to be doing if you were doing a review. You need to have a very complete understanding of the game and all aspects of the game to produce a fair and genuine review. And 2 days is not long enough to prepare a genuine review of this game, of a game like this. So, again, they were suppressing, they were trying their best to hide how bad it was on the consoles. And this was a deliberate decision. A very deliberate decision. This was deception.
Which was later than we originally planned. This all happened while working from home with all the challenges resulting from the COVID-related restrictions. A lot of the...
Okay. There was like 9 months of that leading up to the release of the game. It's not like it caught them by surprise at the last minute. They had plenty of time to plan, prepare, adapt for this, as indeed many studios have done quite successfully, not to mention many other businesses. My life has hardly changed at all because, well, I'm still sitting at home doing this, regardless of whether COVID keeps me here or not. But yeah, that's a fairly wibbly excuse. Yes, it would have changed things, but not so much that they would have had to, oh, last minute, oh no, we're not ready, too late now, we can't delay it another time. No, the reason they didn't delay it another time, even though they knew they should have, is because investors and the people spending money said, hey, you got to get this out the door so we can start seeing a return on our money. It wasn't anything to do with integrity. It wasn't anything to do with getting the game into the hands of eager gamers. There are a lot of people out there who were, you know, we'd had 3 delays to this point. Another delay wouldn't have broken much in the way of our spirits. We were already pretty, you know, lamenting, but no, the investors were kind of demanding that this be out before the end of the year so they could get in on that Christmas rush, so they can get as much money as possible selling the game. And it's just, this is a bullshit excuse. This blaming COVID for not giving them enough time, absolute bullshit.
Dynamics we normally take for granted got lost over video calls or email, and we took that hit too. Now I'd like to tell you about our plans for the future and present a path for CyberPunk 2077 on consoles and PC. We have already released 3 hotfixes improving the game, but that's just the beginning.
And to be fair to them again, those hotfixes have made significant and noticeable improvements in the game and its bugginess in general, if not performance yet.
Our ultimate goal is to fix the bugs and crashes gamers are experiencing across platforms. Please expect bigger and smaller patches on a regular basis. The first update will be dropping within 10 days.
So back in December, they did promise that there were 2 big patches coming. The first one in January, the second one in February. So this is what they're promising here. Although in 10 days' time, I think we'll be out of January by then. So they might not be quite keeping that promise. But still, I'd rather just, you know, again, I'd rather them miss that promise of a release for a patch and get the patch right so it fixes as much as possible than put it out too soon and face yet another backlash.
and it will be followed by another, more significant one in the following weeks. We will, of course, continue to work on the game in future updates and improvements beyond that. Our big plans for supporting CyberPunk in the long term did not change. As for the free DLCs, our initial plan was to deliver them just after the release, much like we did with The Witcher 3.
So this is an interesting chart. As he was saying, they were planning free DLCs or, the cut content they didn't have time to get ready for release, as some more cynical people may point out. Because otherwise, how would you have DLC ready so soon after launch if you weren't already working on that content? Anyway, so they delayed the DLC so they could get the game running properly, so the DLC would be worth playing. Perfectly sensible. But that free next-gen console update drifted way out to the middle or the end. There's no markings on this chart as far as at what kind of time distance we're looking at here, so it's very, very vague and wibbly for them. Free next-gen console updates. Much, much, much later in the year. And on the one hand, you may go, well, okay, that's fine. I'm fine with the game not looking as pretty as possible on my brand new expensive console, so long as the game runs properly and doesn't crash and doesn't have a tremendous amount of bugs and it's just playable in the first place. I'll take that hit. I'll do without ray tracing on my console until the game runs properly. That's fine. But one of the other interesting things about so long before we get the next gen update, before we get the ray tracing and whatnot, is it also meshes in, and this is where I come back to the Minecraft thing I teased at the start of the video, Minecraft 2. Minecraft with RTX, or Minecraft with ray tracing as it is now, because RTX is just NVIDIA's branding and the ray tracing does work with AMD cards. That's come out of beta now. So Minecraft, the Windows 10 version of Minecraft, just has ray tracing built in by default. It's out of beta. It's a default feature in it. One of the more interesting things I noticed while I was fiddling around with Minecraft the other day, because I did just start a new RTX-based survival series in Minecraft on my Twitch streams. Follow me there if you want to check that out. Replays also going up on the secondary channel, cross-promotion. One of the more interesting things I found out when I was deciding, what kind of Minecraft series I'm going to do next to fill the gap before the next, release of it with the new cave features. And I looked at the Xbox version and loaded up the beta through the Xbox Insider program on that and saw that the beta for the Xbox version has the ray tracing toggle in the menus. It's grayed out. You can't select it. You can't toggle it on, but it's there. And we already know that Microsoft and Mojang have promised ray tracing coming to the console version of Minecraft, at least for the new generation consoles, of course, because they can hardware accelerate it. And the reason I think that this isn't here yet, despite it working with AMD cards on the PC right now, and of course AMD hardware is what's in the consoles, the ray tracing is working on PC. They haven't put it on the consoles yet. And the reason I think this is so is also the reason you don't want to be using an AMD card on it for PC, and that's because DLSS on the NVIDIA side is the only thing that makes it playable. Without DLSS, which basically is a very, very clever upscaling technique, much, much cleverer than Sony's checkerboarding bullshit we had with the PlayStation 4 Pro. But it renders the game internally at lower resolution and scales it up using very clever AI thing to make it sort of seamless. It doesn't look like it's upscaled. It looks like it's native. And it works really well in Minecraft, and it makes a tremendous difference between unplayable frame rates and super duper playable frame rates when you're talking about Minecraft using an RTX card. AMD do not have that technology. They are working on a similar technology. I think they call it super scaling or super sample scaling or something along those lines. Who knows, they might rebrand it by the time it's ready, but they haven't got that ready yet, which means on PC right now, they're at a tremendous disadvantage with ray tracing, not being able to have that edge, that little cheaty edge of cheating the resolution to get the extra performance when they're using ray tracing. And I think the same thing is what's holding it back on the consoles, and it's what's holding the next-gen version of this back a little bit. They're waiting until AMD have that technology ready so they can utilize it on the console hardware, so they can internally run it at a lower resolution and scale it up to 4K or whatever, and not completely tank the frame rate to unplayable levels when players turn on that ray tracing. So if I had to guess between them choosing to delay the next-gen update so they had more time to work on the patches and the DLC, or whether they just have to wait because AMD are still tinkering away on their super sampling technology thing, it's probably 6-1, half dozen the other as far as I'm concerned. But I don't know, that's neither here nor there, but it's kind of annoying that people have invested, again, like PC players, they've invested serious money in these next-gen consoles, and they're being second-class citizens at this point. They're not being made a primary choice because, well, the install base isn't there, so the money isn't there.
We decided to focus on the most important fixes and updates first, and we'll be releasing the DLCs afterwards. Expect more information in the upcoming months. For those of you playing on next-gen consoles in back compatibility, you can still expect the free next-gen update for Xbox Series consoles and PlayStation 5 arriving in 2021.
So just sometime in 2021, probably December.
We are aiming at the second half of the year. I'd like to end this video by assuring you that we treat this entire situation very seriously and are working hard to make it right.
Well, of course, they're treating it seriously now, after they've already got a ton of money. Like in the first week or so, they already made back all of their money from the initial investment in making the game. That was the big story that came out. Oh, we already made all our money back on it. Everything here from here on in is gravy. It's pure profit. Well, that's because you already manipulated and abused the trust that your player base had in you, because you presented yourself as the gamer-first developers, which you're just not. You're just like all the other big developers. You're liars and thieves and cheats, and you'll do whatever you can to get as much money as quickly as possible and screw the consequences until the consequences is why he's so curt and apologetic now, is because the latest story about this I've seen is there's going to be legal oversight of their patches in their home country. There's going to be lawyers from the government looking over the shoulder going, don't do this again. Get it right. You screwed over a bunch of people. If you do this again, we're going to come down on you like 700 tons of bricks. So, of course, they're going to tread real careful from now on in, because guess what? Money's on the line this time, because they are facing humongous fines if they screw this up again. It's not just player backlash that they can quietly wait to go away until the next game launches, like, well, companies like EA do. They're literally facing down the barrel of huge governmental fines, money, and that's why they're taking so much care to win our trust back this time. It's not about you, it's not about the gamer, it's not about trust, it's about money, because of course it is.
The guiding principles of our company are still core to what we do. We still want to make amazing games and have an open communication with you, our players. For now, our
open communication with our players while we suppressed the reviews of the console version we knew was broken, so we didn't lose any pre-orders. Ha! Right. Yeah, I'll trust you on that one. I'll take you at face value on that one, champ.
immediate focus is to work hard on making sure you enjoy CyberPunk 2077 regardless of platform. Beyond CyberPunk, we have many plans for the future, which we'll share more about when we're ready. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video.
So, I was highly critical of pretty much everything you said in that video, apart from a couple of things. But the fact is, I really did enjoy CyberPunk, and I'm looking forward to playing it again, but I'm waiting to start a new character until at least the second patch, because hopefully the second patch will do things like add in the AI for the NPCs that made the game so distractingly immersion-breaking in the first place. I liked a lot of the other rest of the game, and I want to do it again from a different point of view, make different choices, do different missions in different ways, choose different weapons, do a different loadout. You know, all the fantastic things that games like this offer up to you when they offer you vastly different ways to do character builds. Replays can be very fun and rewarding and exciting and things like that. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I liked the game. I just don't like how we gamers were treated around this game, and what CD Projekt said versus what they did, versus what they say they're going to do, versus how much we can trust them that they're going to deliver on what they say they're going to do. All the faith and trust should be gone from anyone with any sense of integrity and self-respect. And already I've seen some comments on this tweet they put out, people just blindly praising them and blindly trusting them to fix everything. Oh, we love you. We love you so much. We know you're going to get it. You don't know they're going to get it right. There's no evidence of that, because we have several months of history leading up to the game itself that shows you they will say things that are not true. They will deliberately mislead you whenever possible in the order of getting your money. They will lie to you. They will take away things that they said they were going to give to you and pretend it never happened. You cannot trust them. Just like you cannot trust, companies like EA, who are habitual liars. You can't trust Bethesda. And I love a lot of Bethesda games, but you cannot trust anything Todd Howard says. Like No Man's Sky. What was the bloke's name behind Happy Gilmore games, whatever the bloody hell it was called? I've forgotten the name of the studio now. Him. Can't trust him. He's a known liar. You must not take these people at face value. We have to hold them to their word. And if they don't deliver on their word, then you must stand by your own integrity and not buy their games anymore. But of course, we gamers don't do that, do we? I certainly have barely learnt my lesson. The helm of buyer's remorse, second video in a row, I think I've referenced that. The helm of buyer's remorse from my super duper hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of collector's special ultra canvas bag edition of Fallout 76. I still pre-order games sometimes, and sometimes I'm disappointed by them. It's just, we let ourselves get caught up in the hype, but you've got to put reins on it sometime. You got to hold back your enthusiasms, no matter how much you're looking forward to a game. Learn something. If you don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it. And we're beyond the part now where gamers should have learned their lesson about getting carried away in hype and believing what these figureheads of studios say versus what actually happens, and then forgetting it a year or two later when their next game comes out. Please, please, do not trust this man until he delivers on every single one of the promises he's made. That's the way trust works. You have to earn it. And if you break it, you have to work 3 times as hard to earn it back. I feel much better after that rant. This video was a lot longer than I initially intended it to be. I guess I had more to say than I thought I did, which is, I guess, good considering how I started out this video mocking people who do these reacts to videos who never actually contribute anything of interest. Hopefully this time around I have. If I haven't, I guess let me know. I'm sure you have already. Thanks for watching. I am Bloody. We'll catch you next time, and thank you, as always, to the glorious and wonderful and generous and kind patrons currently scrolling up above my head there. Thank you so much for your above and beyond support. To the rest of you, thank you for whatever support you've done. Thumbs, comments, bells, all that stuff. Or just making it to the end of the video. That's fine too.